Castration and tail docking are often performed as routine husbandry procedures for lambs. These procedures can be painful for the animals. However, there are new innovative methods now available which have been designed to enhance the welfare of the lamb at the time of castration and docking, as well as allowing a larger window for farmers undertaking this procedure. In this episode of FAS TV, we hear from a crofter who is using one of these methods, along with the designer and the Scottish Government's head vet.
Well, I'm MacDonald. I'm a crofter in the Black Isle here, croft with my parents. We've got about 200 ewes and about 20 cows. Sheep is quite busy, and I also have a full-time day job with SAC. So the sheep system we have is roughly based on indoor lambing, although they're in and out during the day and in at night, and we often leave the singles or late lambing twins outside as long as we can, just to keep a bit of space in the shed. So it's maybe the worst of both worlds at times, but no, being inside does allow us to give them a bit of extra attention. So now we're about 4 or 5 weeks post lambing, and our kind of next job is castrating and tail docking the lambs. This year we are using a new piece of technology equipment called the clip fitter tool to castrate the lambs. Previously we've been doing traditional full rubber band castration. For the last couple of years we've also tried doing short scrotum castration, which is pushing the testicles up into the abdomen and putting a band over the scrotum. It has worked well, has been helpful up to a point, but it still had to be done, within 7 days. So with the chance to use clip fitter, we're now moving to that. We are moving away from rubber rings for castration for a couple of reasons. Welfare is one reason. Obviously, even doing them within 7 days when they're quite small and the nervous system is not fully developed, it still causes them a bit of pain. You see lambs kind of stretched out, and you see them, just in a bit of pain. So that's one reason. Also is logistics for us at lambing time, I would say. Doing it this way, we can leave it until anywhere between, 3 weeks later or even a couple of months later. We can just kind of pick when suits us to do the castration. So like a big benefit this year has, healthy lambs, healthy twins and singles. If we didn't need to, then we just left them outside to shift them into another field at night instead of having to take them into the shed. Streamlined the system and meant there wasn't unnecessary handling of lambs, I felt, which we had to do for rubber rings, because previously every lamb would usually come into the shed for at least a day or a night anyway to get marked and numbered and then back out. And it felt like a bit of a waste of time, especially when it was good weather. But that was just how we did it, keep on top of it in our system. Previously, when we were banding or doing full castration, yeah, you'd see the male lambs would be struggling a bit more when they're done, and like you would sometimes get a set of twin girls and you just tail dock them and shove them out, I suppose, and that was easier going, and then sometimes you'd have to slow down for the sake of the males to recover. So now with the clip fitter, they recover very quickly. Within 15 minutes, you're not really seeing a difference to my eye anyway. So yeah, so when we're doing it later on, again, it's very similar to when we've done them with small lambs. They're just, you put the clip on, and after a few minutes, they're just up and away and back grazing or looking for their mothers, quite the thing. So for a couple of years we did short scrotum lambs. We did kind of half and half the first year just to see how they did, and then we did all of them the next year. It worked okay for us. The lambs definitely show less pain response. They look fairly happy. I would say usually you don't see much difference between tail docking and short scrotum castration, but there is, I suppose, a bit of a worry that you have to get the balls fairly well up into the abdomen. I'd also say you're putting the ring on the same place you'd put it on if you're taking full castration. We're just making sure the balls are shoved up, but it is quite and not many people do it. It's slightly unusual practice, so I know some people worry about it not working, and if the scrotum's not coming off, there's some people might always worry. Yeah, there is an added cost over traditional rubber rings with the clip fitter system. I mean, purchasing the tool to do it, and you might need two because there's different sizes too, and then the clips are about 30p each. The way I'm looking at it though is it is improving welfare, and improved welfare is going to lead to better production in the end, generally. Yeah, I would recommend to other farmers. Primarily, I mean, improving welfare is always good. That's another point on the cost as well. I mean, yeah, I would pay the money just to give the lambs less pain, to be honest. And having done it, I'm happy it works and they look better for it. Also, there's a lot of or there can be bad press around farming, and we're always under pressure or attention from a welfare perspective. So now there is an option there to reduce the pain in lambs for this. You know, I think it is a necessary procedure, generally, for most people. If you can reduce the pain involved, then I don't see why not to do it, to be honest.
I'm Brian Eady, from the borders of Scotland, and I've been an engineer since birth. We started off in the textile industry, and as the textile industry left Britain, I found other employment in farming, although I'm not a farmer. Starting off 1990, probably my first sort of decent success, and still running today, is called Bit Fitter. Very simple names, all my products. And it fits little tiny clips to pheasants and poultry to stop feather pecking. It's a real problem for intensively reared birds, probably more than just birds. I mean, pigs and probably humans and stuck in a lift would all start fighting. So these beak bits were part of the life of a pheasant farmer anyway, and it was a very slow and stressful product to fit for the birds. So I improved that by making an automatic fitter for beak bits, and we serve the whole industry now from beginning to end, something like 30 million a year. So it's quite a successful thing. And then somehow I moved on to sheep tagging in the days of non-electronic, and we produced a so-called Adamatic device which dispensed again 10 non-electronic tags. So again, helping the farmer, helping the sheep to an extent because they were handled more quickly and so therefore stressed less. And they were thinner pinned. Malcolm's using my most recent version of that, and quicker to fit, so altogether better for the animal, better for the farmer, I felt. And then finally I came up with another tagging system with 20 tags, electronic, alternating between electronic and non-electronic, just moving with the times as the industry went electronic. And then I retired at 7 years ago. So the clip fitter is very clearly a fitter, a special fitter that fits plastic clips. It mimics what was the Bedizo, is the Bedizo, in a certain way. The Bedizo traps one side then the other side of the scrotum to cause everything to stop working. The clip idea from Vince Maloney goes right the way across the scrotum, and so the bigger the scrotum, the bigger the clip that's necessary. So it's really a size question. Clips are made from plastic by definition. There's nothing else you could make them from, but there are huge developments going on in the plastics industry for the sake of the planet. Whilst I think there's a lot of greenwashing going on, and in other words, people claiming biodegradability, it was very important for me and my brother, actually in particular Peter, to research the suitability of, you would call them biodegradable, plant-based, plastics which weren't going to last forever, and plastics do last for centuries. So the biodegradable material which we've come up with is plant-based. At the moment it's based on wood, but we've used corn, we've used coffee beans, but anything that's sustainable, you would call that. So it's not using the earth's core to produce it as the oil industry would have it with normal plastic. So biodegradability is the direction we're going in, but to begin with, in the last few years, we've been using straightforward coloured plastic. So if you've seen a coloured plastic clip, it would be ordinary plastic. And if it's brown, it's biodegradable. The clips are applied in the same position as a ring. And there's nothing different about the application of a clip positionally to a ring, and that's, I don't know which direction you're looking in, but above the teats, below the balls obviously, and well away from the urethra, the penis. I mean, it's very important to position it correctly. So there's nothing special about fitting a clip. You do have to learn how to do it. I mean, clips can be fitted using any handling method. So there's no special requirement for holding the lambs. It depends on the size, and you would traditionally do it yourself or with help or with a shoot, a team of people. I mean, the first question I do get asked at shows or whenever I do an event is, why should I move from rings? What's wrong with a ring? the key difference is the clip cuts the nerve. So without the nerve working, the brain and the pain are completely detached, and it has no idea that it's even got anything down there. So a ring will strangle the nerve to death, and nerves unfortunately are designed to survive a long time. In war, they're almost there to help you fly away from the enemy if you're injured. So nerves will survive a long time, so the pain survives a long time when you're strangling it. So ours is a guillotine, you would say, rather than a hanging. The top tips for any farmer in using clip fitter is to be patient. It's possibly not always an easy thing for a farmer under duress at lambing time, but if you want clip fitter to work, it will work. And if you give it time, you give yourself time to learn how to use it. And as I say, there's nothing particularly different, except that you must raise the balls yourself and don't use the tool. You're not using the tool as you do with ringing to encourage the balls up. You actually are picking them up and putting the device underneath your fingertips, and that's quite crucial. Finally, I think we would always recommend to fit the clip across the lamb, I call it east-west or west-east, whichever you like, rather than north-south over the danger zone, which is the urethra and penis. It's a definite danger zone. So anything horizontal, east-west or 45 degrees is good, whatever suits you, whatever suits your handedness and the method you're using.
I'm Andrew Vose. I'm the Scottish Government Veterinary Head of Animal Welfare. Well, there have been concerns about the conventional methods of castration for many years. Recently, the UK Animal Welfare Committee did a study of the methods that are available, and they suggested improvements to the legislation and using alternatives to the conventional rubber ring, which is the method that's most widely used for docking and castration at the moment. Well, the conventional rubber ring, it's been recognised for many years that this does cause acute and chronic pain when it's applied to lambs of any age. So legally in Scotland it can be applied to lambs up to 7 days old without anaesthetic, but it has been recognised that this does cause pain, and there is the problem it can still be used on lambs up to 3 months with anaesthetic. But obviously it's fairly impractical to use anaesthetic and then apply the rubber ring, although there is the new device called numbnuts that does provide a more practical way of doing that now. Yeah, there's slightly different legislation now between Scotland and England and Wales. So in Scotland you can use a rubber ring with anaesthetic up to 3 months old, but in England and Wales you can only use the rubber ring up to 7 days old legally, and there's no allowance for using the rubber ring beyond 7 days with anaesthetic. Well, the legal requirement to use rubber rings up to 7 days only, it can be checked at cross-compliance inspections, or if inspectors are on farm for other reasons, that it may come to their attention that rings have been used beyond 7 days old. And there have been a few cases in Scotland where people have received quite sizable cross-compliance penalties because they've been found to be using rubber rings for castration or docking beyond 7 days without anaesthetic. Yes, to explain the new methods that are now available, we have the numbnuts device that's been developed to use the rubber ring with a special applicator that also incorporates a needle to allow local anaesthetic to be injected in the neck of the scrotum or in the tail at the time of application of the ring. So that device is legal for use in Scotland up to 3 months because it provides the anaesthetic and as well as allowing the ring to be applied. And that has been used in Australia and New Zealand as well, so there's now quite a bit of evidence for how that works in lambs of different ages. And the other promising new device is the clip fitter device, and this combines the effect of the Biditso, but it's a very effective way of desensitising the scrotum or the tail because it instantaneously crushes the nerves supplying either the scrotum or the tail, and that instantaneous desensitisation then lasts because the clip remains in place and that also has the similar effect to the ring, where it constricts the flow of blood to the scrotum or tail, meaning that the scrotum or tail will then drop off after a period. Yes, so just to explain the anatomy of the scrotum and what castration is going to achieve, you have the scrotum here, which contains the two testes, and supplying them there are two spermatic cords, and these cords contain the nerves as well as the blood supply to the testes, and there's also tubes carrying the semen from the testes up into the penis. It's important when you're applying either the conventional rubber ring or the clip fitted device to apply it at the neck of the scrotum, so it crushes the spermatic cords but it leaves the urethra intact. The urethra takes urine to the penis, so obviously you don't want to crush that when you're applying either the rubber ring or the clip fitter. And just to show you the conventional rubber ring that lots of people will be familiar with, is applied like that, placed into the neck of the scrotum and then released. As I said, the issue is with that is it does cause acute pain for lambs of any age, maybe for a couple of hours, and then there's chronic pain that may last for 2 or 3 days using that conventional rubber ring method. So there are alternatives to the conventional rubber ring that are legal at the moment. Short scrotum castration can be used because it requires a rubber ring. That should still only be used up to 7 days old without anaesthetic. That is less painful than full castration, but it's not without pain, and you still have the issue of the rubber ring being there and possibly a wound that will take some time to heal. The other main alternative for castration at the moment is the Baditso, or sometimes called the nipper device. That can be awkward to use. It requires, when you're using it for castration, you should castrate each spermatic cord separately and leave a supply of blood to the scrotum in the middle. So it is a slightly trickier technique. It does require a bit of skill to learn that. But that is currently a legal alternative for using up to 3 months of age by farmers. And vets, of course, can castrate lambs over 3 months old using suitable methods, depending on their own requirements. Well, one of the Animal Welfare Committee recommendations was that government should find ways to support farmers to use methods that don't cause significant pain, or possibly to find ways of managing sheep so they don't need to castrate or tail dock in future. So that is something we're definitely looking at for the future when we have powers under the new Agricultural and Rural Communities Bill that's going through the Scottish Parliament at the moment. So we expect to have powers that will allow us to find ways to support farmers to use new devices or to change management practices.